Welcome back to the Yanzhou campaign. Last time we were doing some successful retaliation against the Huainan, turning our war with them into a bit of a stalemate in the end. Then we did a couple of big battles up against the Qingzhou, finishing them off, defeating them out in the field, and then going on to attack their final city and winning the siege assault, so our northeast is now all secured. With our little standoff against the Huainan, it's to neither side's advantage to attack, because there's a siege that would have to be done on either side of the river, and the siege reinforcement rules mean that essentially the attacking side can only bring one army and the defenders can bring many. But right now, you can see there's an enemy army standing on the bridge in between the city and our fort, so we can actually trigger a non-siege battle at the standoff right now. So I thought, well, might as well give it a go. First I put my best foot forward by having all of the elite troops in the first army in the fort, and then we can see what we can do by attacking this army. It is still going to be reinforced by the armies behind it, so it's still a bit of a nasty situation. But the force inside the city is going to come out into this battle, which means there is a siege draw-out potential, plus by making it a night attack we can remove an army from both sides, which helps me since the army on my side probably would have just messed things up anyway if I'd let the AI use it, and Yanzhou still coming out, so we still have the potential for a siege draw-out here. It's a nice looking battle. The catch is that it's a bridge attack. The enemy army is standing on the bridge between us, so now we have to try and get across. Things started off pretty well because the enemy actually began crossing to attack us. I'm guessing it's something to do with us having the ballistas. They don't want to sit and wait for me to gradually shoot them to pieces. They start advancing across the bridge with cavalry at the front, so all we need to do is throw our heavy spears at the end of the bridge and receive them, just like this. That light cav unit's going to get absolutely eviscerated in seconds, and then as all the infantry piles in behind and a general mosh gets started, we'll have our archers start raining arrows on the bridge and start racking up the kills. The problem we'll have is that the archers really want to shoot at the thing that's closest to them, so we need to micromanage them to prevent them from just shooting our own men. We are going to get quite a lot of that still, especially because in the mosh, units get spread out, so even if you order your men to shoot towards the back, they may end up shooting towards the front anyway and cause massive friendly fire casualties, but that's just what we get. We're still going to kill lots of enemies because they're all bunched together. You can see bodies all over the bridge already. I throw a few more units into that fight at the head of the bridge, because we do need to match the enemy's mass to stop them from pushing us away in these early games. So we hold our position, and with some help from the archers, we broadly annihilate the units that came right at us, especially because there were so many cav who just died instantly, barely even saw it, to our spears. Somewhere in the mix we take out their captain, and now this first army is in trouble, or at least the melee component is. We've pretty much killed them all already. But now the situation will reverse. We still have to go across the bridge to win the battle, and the bridge is now covered in all of the archers from that first army, so it really is just the opposite situation. We're now running into all of those archers, and while they're bunched together they will be shooting at us the whole time. The second army under Yanzhou has glitched and it's just sitting back here. Or maybe it's sitting back here deliberately, I don't know. It looks like they failed to come onto the field a little bit, so they might have just been waiting for something to happen. Anyway, so they're back there. We need to get across this bridge and attack them to have any hope of this battle meaning anything strategically. That means a huge mosh will now start on the bridge again, just at the other end, as we try and hack our way through the archers, and the units at the front will distract our men sufficiently that the units at the back will still be shooting us, and we do take pretty substantial casualties crossing this bridge. Still, it's nothing too bad. The enemy's casualties would have been massive in the melees because it's just archers, and as they rout, we break out the other side of the bridge right into more arrows. They've got more archers up on the hill, so we can't stop running. We keep charging, and very smartly the archers just run backwards. So we end up running all the way up the hill on the other side, or most of the way up, before I realise we need to stop chasing them and just reform, because now the second army is going to start getting baited into this combat, and we're not in formation at all. The odd unit off on the side can be chased away safely, but we could do with setting up something right here for this fight. Luckily it's archers right there, so not the hardest melee for our men to fight. But then we plough on into the rest of the second army, a mix of MISC units. All I really care about is trying to get to Yanzhou, because the enemy faction leader is just standing there. Let's try and kill him, especially because we have to kill him to have any chance of getting the siege draw out. Although you might note that because we're fighting up against the line, it is going to be very hard to kill the 85% of this second army that we need to achieve that, since easily guys can just rout off the field the moment they start routing. Anyway, we're doing our best, fighting in many pockets around the place, and actually losing quite a few men, since we don't really have advantages in many of the little pocket battles with our army so spread out and not properly formed up. But in other places, like right here, where our heavy swords are annihilating these archers, that's going to look good. The thing is, the AI suddenly has a very good day. Yanzhou and his cav just retreat off the field. They're not routing. This is the AI voluntarily leaving the field because they don't want to lose the battle. Something you quite rarely see in these games, but you don't see at all after Medieval 2, I think. Anyway, the AI lost the ability to do that, making itself substantially weaker in the process. So there we go, the AI is going to refuse my siege draw out and refuse my chance to kill their faction leader and get away with a whole load of troops. They're still going to have about a third to a half of a stack of men in the city. Not a very good siege draw out. We did defeat that first army, so that's something, but we took serious losses ourselves achieving it, and there's really no strategic purpose to this in retrospect, because we didn't achieve a siege draw out. We've just killed some enemies and they'll just recruit some more, we can recruit some more to replace our guys, and everyone's just exactly where they were before. We're both staring at each other across the river. So very much a stalemate-y battle to signify the stalemate-y strategic situation we've gotten ourselves into. There are things we can do to bypass that heavily defended point of entry into enemy territory, and one of them involves going around to the west. First, I need to get military access with the Chen, our allies, and they seem quite happy to provide that. This means we can go around over here to a couple of other river crossings that allow us to get into enemy territory for free. The question of what we actually do once we're in there still remains, but this is a better move than doing nothing at all, I think. They've still got loads of armies all the way back there. They just have so many troops, the Huainan, that even though they've put 5 or 6 stacks defending one bridge, their other cities are still defended, meaning we can't be too sneaky about busting in here. But yes, we're going to make advances and see what happens, essentially. We just skipped a turn there because nothing at all happened, so here's Zhang Liao coming down towards the western point of Huainan's empire, or at least the western part of the northern part. Beyond the mountains to the south there's more Huainan territory, but it's kind of impassable, so we can ignore it. Yiyang, the city I was going for, is pretty heavily defended, so I thought it would really help if the Chen sent some of their 4 or 5 stacks that are hanging around to go and attack at the same time. Unfortunately, when I asked them what their price was for declaring war on Huainan, they just rejected the idea entirely, so apparently that's not going to happen. I can also make advances into enemy territory from the east. I've been defending this river crossing over there for a while, but with the reinforcements that have arrived from the Qingzhou front, we now have quite a few armies here and might as well go for an attack. What I'm doing is trying to set these armies up in a position where the campaign map looks like it will provide a hill if a battle was to take place. So since I'm going and just standing here in enemy territory, there is the risk they'll send 4 armies to attack me at once, and if that happens we want to have good terrain. So there we go, we push in with 2 armies, we'll leave some men behind to still defend the river crossing, and I'm recruiting more in the area, plus more on the way from the north, so we'll soon have those defences all shored up again. Out at sea, it's time for another naval battle. We're taking down a weak Huainan force. There we go, that's unblockaded one of our trade ports. So yes, we have now put together something that resembles a navy. We're going to have a full stack, which I intend to send down to the Great River to go and harass the Sun, just to make sure they're not harassing us in general. Now let's see if the Huainan respond to me sending armies into their territory. Well, they don't really. What they do is they further reinforce the Shouchun area, so now the stalemate's even harder to break, for us at least. But this means we're free to keep moving through their lands. So first we set up a siege at Yiyang with Zhang Liao. Since there is a substantial army inside, I don't want to make a siege attack, it would probably be a disaster. Winnable, but only with heavy casualties. We'll just leave that siege going. Now I'm recruiting some catapults, because where there are cities with just a few men in them, we need to make lightning strikes using catapults to attack on our first turn of the siege and quickly get in the walls before the Huainan mobilize their millions of armies to counterattack. And wisely here, I'm moving an officer to go and oversee the recruitment of the catapults, so that he can move them down to the battlefront without them rebelling, hopefully. That's the plan. I came up with this peace package actually, thinking maybe we should just try and stop the Huainan war and actually just pay to not have to deal with this whole situation. It would be way easier to just steamroll some other faction. But then I thought, no, I actually kind of want to attack Huainan. I want to try and crack their shell, as it were, so I then gave them a deal which they wouldn't accept, and peace was off the table. So we continue on. My little force from the east, I say little, quite large actually, force from the east, will keep sneaking through enemy territory and hoping that we can get to somewhere nice and juicy to attack without the enemy really committing to stop us. And as another end turn sequence goes by, it appears we are going to be free to do that. They just further reinforce Shochun with no reaction to my attacks so far. We had an offer of alliance from the Liang over to the west. I was thinking of actually accepting this, because I thought with the Huainan war we're probably not going to go back over there. I thought, okay, let's just trade map information as well, and then they said no, that's not acceptable. I said, okay, how about the original deal? And they said no, that's absolutely not acceptable. So I don't know how that negotiation went so poorly. I think that's just the AI being weird. Someone mentioned you have to throw them gifts every time they disagree with you to make them actually continue negotiating reasonably. Anyway, we go on to fight a Sun Navy. They were blockading one of my ports, and now our massive fleet just wipes them out. That's what we like to see. I'm going to have these guys hang around for a turn, because you can retrain the Navy crews in docks, which we'll need to do. We want to be at full strength before we go out and start just annihilating whatever's on the Great River. Now back to our ground offensives. Looks like the enemy still haven't noticed that we're hiding in the forest here, so I'm going to continue moving down towards Hefei. I can actually attack it this turn, but I don't want to. Besieging the city will almost certainly draw a couple of stacks over to fight us, so I do want to wait for those catapults to be available, or to go for a siege draw out and try and take some walls instantly and not leave any sieges going. With Songshan waiting at that river crossing, I'm going to sneak him down towards the enemy capital actually, An Fang, just there, which actually does have a siege draw out available right now, so we'll see if that's still there next turn. The Huainan turn now shows some sign of them realizing what's going on. They move a lot of units to go and garrison Hefei, and after various small armies take their turn, it ends up with a substantial force inside, so even if I wanted to besiege it, I wouldn't be able to quickly get into the city without gigantic losses. It is, however, left in a siege draw-out situation with an enemy army outside. However, I'm more interested in the An Fang situation, because the potential siege draw-out we saw last turn is still there, and Songshan is now in range to take advantage of that. First I moved the other two armies. I need to bring them around to the west of Hefei, because the little gap between Hefei and the sea is impassable. So from there they can potentially do something next turn, or just fight a battle if needs be, if the enemy attack. Right now we'll focus on this. Songshan's going to go for it. Not the easiest situation. We do have to take down a pretty big army with loads of upgrades right there, but if we do it, we will be taking the enemy's capital, so certainly worth a shot. We are going to have to attack uphill, and the enemy formation is decent enough. They've got loads of armoured archers at the front, so approaching up the hill will be especially difficult for us. I still was going to set up and try and do this anyway, but because the AI is generous, they then decided to come down off the hill and just randomly attack me, so here we go. The skirmish phase begins, where I thought things would be okay. I thought I can just stand here and shoot the enemy. But actually, because the enemy have about the same number of archers as we do, but theirs have better armour upgrades, a skirmish isn't really in our favour, even with the AI wasting time doing reforms and moving their targets or switching target all the time. We're just not really getting the kills, and they are killing some of our men, plus because my formation's quite tightly packed with my spearmen just behind the archers, we're losing melee infantry right now as well. Anyway, so we move on and get the fight started. I push all of my melee infantry to the front, or my spears I should say, to the front, and receive the enemy, who were as usual just going to advance with their own melee infantry and ignore skirmishing. The fight starts mainly on the right, with the enemy just ploughing into our little groups of spears. I'm really focusing on trying to get the enemy surrounded rather than fighting on the front line, because our objective in this battle is, of course, not just to win, but to win absolutely. And if that means losing more men in the process, then that's just what you have to do. So our cavalry will focus on the enemy's archers. We're going to ignore those little melees there that we could easily rear charge. We want to try and get everything into fights. We don't want enemy horse archers running away, for example, and that's where Song Shan is going right now. He's going to chase down horse archers and cavalry in general. On our left, our volunteer cav do a decent job fighting enemy archers, but as I see men starting to run away, we have to just quit these engagements and try to get the enemy surrounded again. We can't have any significant pockets escaping. We need to get that 85% killed. We also need to make sure we kill the enemy commander, because it doesn't matter how many people we kill. If he survives, the siege drawout will have failed. Something will be in the city. At this point in the battle, most stuff is actually routing or skirmishing away. Loads of the archers are just skirmishing all over the place, so things are starting to spread out, and what I need to do is make sure I'm not chasing down units that are too small. The AI is really bad at attacking small units with big ones, so it's a huge waste of time. We need to just hit only the biggest units and hit them fast to try and get our kill percentage up. Here we are after a while. The battle itself was nothing significant. The enemy just routed pretty much, as I said, and we took them down. But we needed to play on after everything was routing to make sure we got the golden number and to make sure we got the enemy commander. There he goes. After his death, I probably could have quit the battle now, because we're actually at 90%. However, because there are actually two armies and we need to get 85% specifically on the second army, it's hard to know how much we've killed. Therefore, I went on for 10 more seconds or something to kill some more stuff, and there's the result. Making sure to quit before enemy units had left the field. You can see on the minimap, everything is still within the play area, so nothing had technically counted as escaping so far, and that helps us out. It looks like we actually got the result we needed there. In we go. We stride into the enemy capital. It is ours. This is going to be a huge psychological defeat for the enemy. Will be hard to actually hold it because the locals aren't very happy about us showing up. I could have killed them. That probably would have made it easier to hold, but then again it would have been less worth it to hold it because we would have got less money, etc. Anyway, so we're going to face low public order and rebellion very soon, but ignoring that, things look pretty good. I noticed that the next city over is very likely defended, so we could potentially go on and actually take more territory here. Let's see how Huainan react to this sudden loss. Well, they don't do all that much. They do set up as if they were planning to make a counterattack, but only with like 4 units. A lot of their men actually go and cluster around Hefei. We've got some rioting going on in Anfang, which was expected, and public order is so low, it still hasn't improved, that we will actually now face a rebellion unless we can improve public order a lot this turn. One thing we can do, which doesn't help that, but is a good idea, is to kill the men that the enemy just stationed outside the city gates, standing around, not besieging us. So there we go, we'll just kill them and that's the end of that. As for the public order situation, we're going to get the men from around Hefei to come over and replace the garrison. I've got Shuilan here, who's a little bit of a better officer when it comes to governing. Struggled to actually swap their armies around here, but eventually we're going to work it out. And now with his army in there, which is both bigger and, as I said, commanded by a better guy, the city will not rebel. The other army that I have up at Hefei, I'm actually going to move out of the theatre back to one of the bridges over in the west. Did a bit of scouting to note that there's not much down to the south, so we probably are safe to carry on and attack that lightly defended city. Going to just wait at the border for this turn, but that will be something we look into. I also noticed on the diplomatic front there's some good news. The Sun clan is now at war with Nanyang, as is Huainan, so our ally to our west and southwest has joined in on our wars, possibly down here in this section that we haven't really seen. I think they might border both Huainan and Sun there, so maybe they'll cause distractions and the like and make our life easier now. Next, I'm going to make this attack that I've been promising up the Changjiang, the big river. We just need to take down these Sun fleets, which are blockading entry to the river quite effectively. I don't know if the AI is doing this deliberately. We actually can't get in without fighting at least something. At least we have absolutely loads of boats on our side, so we can just power our way through. Not a completely one-sided battle, but the auto-resolve apparently goes well, and there we go, we're in. My original intention was to blockade Sun ports, but I decided I'll try and get through to blockade Hefei's port instead, since the Huainan are the more pressing threat. We can also use this journey as a chance to scout Sun territory, not only seeing where their ports are, but seeing what sorts of cities they have along the coast and what sorts of armies are sitting around, and if we're very lucky we might happen to spot an invasion force being prepared. There's nothing much to worry about for now, so we just carry on with that voyage. And now, one more look at a Huainan turn. They're setting up as if they want to make a counterattack at An Fang, but more importantly, they've now moved quite a lot of stuff away from Shouchun, so that original standoff that we were trying to get around has de-escalated as a result of our attacks, meaning we may actually be able to trigger a battle and successfully break through, which is important because that's where the enemy faction leader Yuan Shu is. So I'll be looking into that in the next part.